Hello, BookTube. I think last week I neglected one of BookTube's standing staples, which is Friday Reads. I think I didn't do a Friday Reads last week. I think the day probably got away from me. I've been having that happen lately. I have a Friday Reads for you today, and it's all over the map. There are a few books that I've read in one way or another. There are some books that I haven't read, and I want to show them all to you and talk about them all. We'll start off with someone that we just saw. This was already on my Friday Reads anyway, and then I got the very book that I was thinking about. The book in question comes out in January, and it's from Echo Press. It's their Art of a Story series, and it's this, A Sportsman's Notebook by Ivan Turgenev, who wrote these stories about wandering through the Russian countryside in the middle of the 19th century. And he wrote a batch of them, and they were popular, they were read, they were much discussed, and they got him into trouble. They were a little, on some headings, they were a little too close to true. And he went into exile, first to his mother's estate and then overseas, and eventually came back to this. He wrote a whole bunch of other stuff, of course. He wrote a whole bunch of other stuff. One of the things that he wrote, of course, his towering masterpiece, Fathers and Sons, was deeply disillusioned him with the critical world. My own brethren of book reviewers, he I think knew that he had written a masterpiece and certainly didn't get the kind of reception that he thought. The reception of this book has always been a little stranger, and he must have known that, because he returned to it and wrote extra stories for what eventually became the whole of this book. So that in English language translations, certainly in the last 100 years, you will find examples of this book that don't have all the sketches. And you just have to watch out for that. You're going to want them all. You'll notice, it won't matter who you're using for a translation into English. You'll notice right away, I think, the difference between the later sketches and the earlier ones. You'll be able to tell right away. Not in a bad way, but I knew that this was coming. And this edition, this is going to be a new paperback edition coming out in January, and this is the Charles and Natasha Hepburn translation. And since I knew that that was coming, I immediately did my favorite thing to do, which is to go to the Penguin wall. You're not seeing it right now because I'm still filming out here in this room, but in the little book room, I have a whole wall of Penguin classics. I would love to have more. I would love to fill that room with Penguin classics. I just don't get to use bookstores as often as I used to. I used to steadily gather them, and I don't anymore. Or I could just, make a point of finding them online and chip away at them. If I bought 2 a week, I don't think that would strain the budget, and that would end up being a lot of books by the end of the year. But I went to the Penguin wall to get to read Turgenev again, only not the Hepburn translation. So I found this one is called Sketches from a Hunter's Album, not a Sportsman's Notebook. And this is a translation by Richard Freeborn. And it has, as usual with Penguin, it has a long introduction and notes and whatnot. So, and it's been a while since I read this, and any excuse that I will take any excuse to go to the Penguin wall and revisit. They're my oldest friends. They're the books I live and love. So I was already in the midst of sort of hunkering down with this book to sort of get the feel of it, of the other widely published English language translation before I get to this one in January. So that starts off my Friday Reads, is something that I have read before. But I had sort of a point. This is kind of the point. And it tends to be what I do. I'm sure that I will write about this Echo book, this new edition. I'm sure that I will. And if I'm going to do that, I want to be familiar. I want to be familiar not only with the stories, but also with the nuances of translation. And then the next one in the pile of have-reads is also a little bit dodgy, because I'm sure that I have read everything that's in here, but I've never read this particular book. This is a collection of short stories called Alien Archives by the great Robert Silverberg, probably the greatest science fiction author who's still alive today. And this is coming out in October, and what it is a collection of just 18 Robert Silverberg stories about humans encountering aliens. It's set along that theme, so it isn't time travel, it isn't historical fiction, it isn't historical alternative fiction, it isn't far future empires or anything like that. It's instead humans encountering aliens. And I don't really care. I don't really care what the theme is. I will read Robert Silverberg under any circumstances, with any theme. He has pleased me enormously, and I am sure, I mean, I haven't actually studied. This is from Three Rooms Press. I should probably tell you about it, shouldn't I? It comes out on October 1st, so it's probably in your bookstores already, unless Three Rooms Press just doesn't have the distribution. But if you have a big retail bookstore near you, or even a small, an independent bookstore, they'll certainly be able to get this. I mean, Three Rooms Press might be small, but I'd be willing to bet that they deal with Baker and Taylor and Ingram, so you'll still be able to get a copy, and you should. Because Silverberg is, if you haven't made his acquaintance, you're certainly, in your science fiction and fantasy aisle of your big, glitzy, shiny retail bookstore, you're not going to see more than a fraction of what this guy has written. And probably not any of his great stuff. I mean, you science fiction people who are out there can probably tell me, are the Marjapur Chronicles even in print? If you go into a science fiction aisle of your bookstore, are you even going to see them? I don't know, one way or another. Or Up the Line, or Son of Man, or any of the others. Night Flyers? I don't know. So grab Robert Silverberg's books when you see them. But this comes out... okay, no. Okay, maybe I read this wrong. How odd. This is going to come out as a $16 trade paperback, but it does not come out on the 1st of October. It comes out at the end of October, the 29th of October. So, you have time now to it's called Alien Archives. You have time to go to your bookstore and see if they have it, see if they're going to get it. What does the pub sheet have to say about this thing anyway? Recent news articles suggest aliens may be living among us. My surly houseboy is seeing the Joker movie. Don't know why I thought of that. Even the Navy reports the sky is full of UFOs. And when more than 1 million people signed up to, quote, storm Area 51, it's clear that people are thinking about aliens more than ever. And this is... All right, and we go from that rather obvious springboard to this collection. So what have we got here? I bet I will know these stories. Some of them, anyway. Shadow of Wings, Gorgon Planet, Diana of the 100 Breasts, Sunrise on Mercury. Oh my. Okay, well, great. So that now you know what I mean. I have read these. Probably some of them I've completely forgotten. But it's a joy to have them in a book. So that is the next have read. And then the final have read, this is the finished copy of something that we saw on this channel. I believe we saw the advanced copy. I think this comes out at the end of the month. Let's see. When does this come out? No, it comes out in mid-November, but I couldn't wait for obvious reasons. This is by Alex Messenger, and it's called The 29th Day. And you can see, surviving a grizzly attack in the Canadian tundra. And I don't know if it's the young author's intent. The author is extremely young. He did live. He's the one who's attacked, and he did live. He was even younger when he went through it. He was just a teenager. He and his friends are camping in the Northwest Territories, and they're in the middle of nowhere. They're on the tundra. They're far, far from civilization of any kind. They're catching and cooking their own fish fillets straight out of ice-cold rivers and lakes. And the main character, it's a non-fiction work. It's written in a very gripping way. And Alex Messenger is on the tundra when he surprises a grizzly bear that is coming towards him. And grizzly bear conservationists and game wardens of all kinds will tell you that although that is an alarming situation, it is not necessarily or even likely to be a violent one. That these people will tell you, bears don't want anything more to do with you than you want to do with them. And I'm here to tell you that's bunkum. That is absolute bunkum. That might be true for black bears. But grizzly bears are perfectly happy to go out of their way to eviscerate someone. They are always in a bad mood. They are immensely bigger than black bears and immensely more bad-tempered. And sure enough, Alex Messenger has that horrible, horrible moment. You read about it in bear attack narratives going back 300 years. There's always that horrible moment when the person who is encountering the bear realizes that the bear is not going to turn around, that the bear intends to attack, not to threaten, not to fake charge. They often do. Grizzlies will often fake charge, and they can be harrowing. I have been on the receiving end of many fake charges from grizzly bears, and it looks like the real thing until the very last minute. It's supposed to. They will very often do that, and in bear attack narratives, there's always that moment when the survivors will always write about that, the moment they knew that it was actually going to happen, that the bear was not going to turn aside, that it actually did mean to attack. And Alex Messenger is not killed, but he is badly wounded, and the bear goes away, and all of a sudden his friends are faced with, what do you do? What do you do if your friend stumbles, crawls back into camp, and he's been mauled by a bear? And no one knows where you are, and you are days and days away from any kind of help. They have to pool together. They have to pull together their courage and their ingenuity, and the writing is very raw. It's very, you are there. I don't know that it was the author's intent, but this is just begging to be made into a movie. Just begging. And to make stars out of its young cast of male actors. So I'm sincerely hoping that Alex Messenger's agent has pitched this to the right people, hopefully, because there are careers waiting to be made out of this movie. It's a terrific idea. And also gripping. And of course I wasn't going to pass it up, because I've been in the exact places that he is, the exact lakes, the exact rivers, the exact places in the Northwest Territories on the tundra. I've seen bears there, and bears have fake charged me there. And the only reason that I wasn't attacked is because I had dogs with me, many, many canines with me, and that confuses bears, and it tends to make them think twice. That's what you want to do. You want a bad-tempered grizzly bear, and that's kind of an oxymoron because there's no other kind. You want a bad-tempered grizzly bear to think twice. If they think twice about the constantly escalating state of their aggression, they will turn around. They will reconsider. They will go away. They will do that almost invariably, unless they've got something wrong with them. If they've got an infected tooth or an infection of some kind or other like that, then it won't matter. But otherwise, the only thing you want them to do is stop for a minute and think about what they're doing. If they do that, they'll change their mind. It's only momentum and adrenaline, or whatever the bear equivalent of adrenaline is. They're sopping in it. And a big pack of baying dogs will get a bear to do that. So that's the only reason that I never faced this. But I've been in the exact place where this kid is, and where he doesn't have any dogs. More fool him. But a terrific story. Terrific. Comes out in November, and it's gripping. If you're flush with cash, or if you buy hardcovers at your Barnes & Noble or wherever, and you're looking for an outdoor adventure story that'll just keep you gripped and make you feel like you know the characters, you can't go wrong with this. But you can't go wrong with the library either. And then we'll deal with a couple of things that I haven't read. The first one is a science fiction junkie of mine, a sort of science fiction thriller junkie friend of mine, has told me already that I'm going to love this book. And this person is seldom wrong, so I'm looking forward to it. This is A Single Night by Tosca Lee. Now, I believe that Tosca Lee's last book, this is a sequel to The Line Between, which is a kind of what-if dystopian, nightmare scenario type of thing. Not so much zombie plagues or, 100 years in the future, but rather what happens if something attacks the power grid now. What happens if there's a pandemic now? So right on the edge of science fiction, and definitely a thriller. And I don't think I read The Line Between. I remember getting it. I think we hauled it on this channel, but I don't think I ever read it. And this is the sequel. And my friend, my science fiction thriller junkie friend has told me, don't worry about it. The author does a fine job. You're not going to feel like it's a sequel at all. Just dive right in. So ordinarily my approach with this would be to go to the publicist and saying, is there any chance that you could get me the first book? But I'm not going to bother to do that. My friend's recommendation is enough for me. And this is the immediate aftermath of that what-if scenario. 6 months after vanishing into an underground silo with 61 others, Winter and Chase emerge to an altered world. They see no sign of Noah or the rest of the group that was supposed to greet them. And the same people Winter was counting on to help her locate the antibiotics that her gravely ill friend needs. As the clock ticks down on her friend's life, Winter and Chase embark on a desperate search for medicine and answers. But what they find is not a nation on the cusp of recovery thanks to a promising new vaccine that Winter helped to create and assumes that the world has. It was evac'd out. She is assuming that for 6 months the world has been working on replicating this antidote. Instead, when she and her friend come up above ground, they find a world that has been devastated by a disease that should be long over. The world should be recovering, and it's not. What happened while they were underground? With food and water in limited supply, Winter and Chase must venture far beyond the safety of the silo and come face to face with a radically changed society where communities scramble for dwindling resources under rogue leaders. As Winter learns the terrible truth of the past 6 months, she is called upon once again to help save a nation beyond her recognition, a place so chaotic she's no longer sure it can even survive. And I think, I don't want to read my friend's mind, but I think the reason why he was so adamant that I don't need to read the previous book is because I think you can sense it in that pub sheet, in that description, which is that we are following the point of view of characters who don't know what's going on, who don't know what's happened in the interval. So they will naturally talk about the previous book, and we'll be learning about the events of the new book right alongside them. So maybe that is the reason. I'm hoping. It's on my launch pad. So, I should probably tell you when this comes out, right? September 17th, so a couple of weeks. Then this next one, totally different change of pace, but I read all kinds of things. So this is by Eric Nelson. It's from the Belknap Press of Harvard University Press, and it's called The Theology of Liberalism, Political Philosophy, and the Justice of God. And it's the author's contention that that liberal political philosophies actually owe a lot to religious thinking. We think of modern liberalism as the novel product of a world reinvented on a secular basis after 1945. In The Theology of Liberalism, one of the country's most important political theorists argues that we could hardly be more wrong. Eric Nelson contends that the tradition of liberal political philosophy founded by John Rawls is, however unwittingly, the product of ancient theological debates about justice and evil. Once we understand this, he suggests, we can recognize the deep incoherence of various forms of liberal political philosophy that have emerged in Rawls's wake. And I'm hoping that I don't need to brush up on John Rawls in order to read this, because I don't have his seminal work. I don't have his big book. I don't have any John Rawls. So, but I'm going to hope not. I'm going to hope this is not an adjacent work to anything, so I'm going to give it a try. And then the last two things I want to show you, I mentioned that I was at Barnes & Noble. I think in the last video I mentioned that I went into Barnes & Noble just to see what I could see, just to walk around. And I found a couple of things. I shouldn't ever go to the mass market paperback towers, because I always find stuff there. And stuff that I don't need. I needed like a hole in the head. But I got two romances, two Regency romances that I don't have and that I don't think I'm going to get. They're both Avon historicals, and I don't think I get many Avons in the mail. So I want to show them to you. The first one is by Carolyn Linden, and it's called When the Marquis Was Mine. Sorry, this is a Wagers of Sin. When the Marquis was mine. A very purple cover. This is the Wagers of Sin. From this author did the Scandalous series, Love and Other Scandals. It Takes a Scandal, All's Fair in Love and Scandal. And this is the third book in this series. The first one was My Once and Future Duke, and the second one was An Earl Like You, which I read. I remember Earl Like You, and I liked it. So what have we got here? Georgiana Lucas despises the arrogant and cruel Marquess of Westmoreland, even before learning that he's won the deed to her friend Kitty's home in a card game. Still, Georgiana assures Kitty the Marquess wouldn't possibly come all the way to Derbyshire to throw them out, until he shows up bloody and unconscious. Fearing that Kitty would rather see him die, Georgiana blurts out that he's her fiancé. She'll nurse the hateful man back to health and make him vow to leave and never return. The man who wakes up, though, is nothing like the heartless rogue Georgiana thought she knew. He wakes up with no memory of being assaulted or of who he is. Again, with the amnesia. Trust me, after 5 marriages to Deb, you want amnesia, and it doesn't happen. Amnesia never happens, not even when it's a blessing. The bewitching beauty tending him so devoutly calls him Rob and claims she's his fiancée, even as she avoids his touch. Though he can't remember how he won her hand, he's now determined to win her heart. But as his memory returns and the truth is revealed, Rob must decide if the game is up or if he'll take a chance on a love that defies all odds. And there's no reason for me to tell you about a publication date, because it's out now. I bought it at the bookstore. And the next one is called Heiress Gone Wild, by Laura Lee Gerke, who can do no wrong. I have read everything that she has written. She wrote The Truth About Love and Dukes, The Trouble with True Love, and Governess Gone Rogue. And The Truth About Love and Dukes, I believe, has been on this channel. What book hasn't been on this channel? But that was a terrific romance. And this has a lovely, a beautiful, colorful cover, and also Paul Marin. What my favorite romance cover model. So what have we got here? Dear Lady Truelove, my ward is driving me crazy. I have to marry her off and get her out of my life. There's just one problem. When Jonathan Deverell promises a dying friend he'd be a guardian to the man's daughter, he envisioned a girl in pigtails and pinafores, a child he could leave behind in some finishing school. Problem is, his ward is actually a fully grown, defiant beauty whose longing for romance threatens to make his guardianship a living hell. New York heiress Marjorie McGann wants a London season and a titled husband who can help her spend the Yankee millions she's inherited. And she thinks her new British guardian is the perfect person to help her find him. But Jonathan has no intention of letting his friend's fortune be squandered. Under his watchful, protective eye, Marjorie finds romance hard to come by, until one fateful night when her own guardian's devastating kiss makes her wonder if the greatest romance of all might be right in front of her. So, those will probably be read fairly soon. So, that is our Friday reads for today. We have The Theology of Liberalism. Title alone, that seems like a contradiction. Then A Single Light by Tosca Lee, in which survivors come up above ground to a world that is not working at all, and find that what they thought would be a little bit of relief is suddenly going to be a whole battle, a battle of another kind. Then The 29th Day by Alex Messenger. Read it now before it becomes inevitably a movie. I can only hope, since the bear doesn't kill Alex Messenger, I can only hope that he's not played by Timothée Chalamet. If the bear actually killed the teenager, then I'd be all for it. But then we have Alien Archives by the great Robert Silverberg. Any Robert Silverberg collection, whether it's at a used bookstore or new, a total treat for it to be new. Grab it, because it's worth your time. If you haven't read Robert Silverberg, you're missing one of the greats. Then we have Turgenev, and this is the Penguin, sketches from Hunter's album, and it's because I'm looking forward to reading this, A Sportsman's Notebook. And if I remember correctly from this Penguin, I just dived into the stories, but I will read the introduction, reread the introduction. If I remember correctly, the translator has a bit to say about how this is not an innocent variation on the title. If I remember correctly, he has a bit to say about how that is a bad variation, on a bad translation of what Turgenev's actual title was. I'll have to see. I'll be delving into it. This will probably prompt me to read all of the Turgenev that I have, and probably a biography of him. And then romance. We'll end with romance. So we have When the Marquess Was Mine, which is the next book in the Wagers of Sin novel. And we have Heiress Gone Wild by Laura Lee Gerke. So there you go. That is Friday Reads, because I don't like to let BookTube traditions go by the board. Oh, and speaking of BookTube traditions, new or old, quite a few have been asking me, what happened to Jason Harrigan? What happened to Jason Harrigan's channel? He was a new channel, one of these 4 or 5 new channels that everybody was loving. And I thought I would mention, and I'll leave a link to it down below, that he did what a lot of new booktubers have done. I'm sure some of you have done it, where he sort of, it suddenly hits you that you're doing BookTube, and he pulled back and rethought some things, and has relaunched, his channel under a new name. Byways and Bookland is the name of it. And I'll leave a link to it down below, just so that you know where to find him, and you'll know when his updates are, because, your old subscription, the subscription to a channel called Jason Harrigan, will no longer work. So that's the answer to that, is that while he rethinks what role BookTube is going to play in his life, how he's going to deal with it, anybody who makes BookTube videos, you all have to come to that choice sooner or later. At least you'll know where to find him, so you can go and subscribe to that channel. So I'll leave a link to that down below. I'll try to remember. And I'm going to wrap this up for now. That is our Friday Reads for today. But this is not all the books that I'll be reading this weekend. Not by a long shot. Not by a long shot. Because the romance, let's see. Heiress Gone Wild, 1 hour. When the Marquess Was Mine, 1 hour. Sketches from a Hunter's album, 1 hour. Ancillary reading, probably longer than that. Robert Silverberg, Alien Archives, probably an hour and a half. 29th Day, I've already read. A Single Light by Tosca Lee, an hour, maybe 2. And The Theology of Liberalism, by far the thinnest book, but I imagine that it will take me the longest to digest and chew into pieces. So let's say 2 hours. So what did I just do there? 8 hours. Less than that. from a weekend in which I'm going to read for probably 40 hours. So this is not all that I'll be reading, but you want to do a Friday reads anyway to sort of plant your flag. So I'm gonna finish things here for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.